Good morning. My name is Carmen Lita Scott, President and CEO of the ATL Airport Chamber. Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Our media partner sponsoring us today is Focus Atlanta. In this time of uncertainty, it is important for our business partners to help facilitate business growth in the time of economic challenge. For this reason, Capital Analytics, parent company of Focus Atlanta, will waive their fee to use their full library of resources. After the session, I will send a link to this resource. Today, Wednesday Wisdom will address web design. Our keynote speaker is Jason Bass. Jason is the CEO and creator of Possibilities of Jason Henry Design. He actively participates in the Chamber of Commerce community throughout the Metro Atlanta area, where he uses his talents, network, and resources to mentor fellow entrepreneurs, small businesses, and meets the technology needs of nonprofit organizations. It is my distinct honor to welcome Jason Bass.
Thanks, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with you. These are unprecedented times in our history, and the COVID-19 pandemic is truly having an impact on the health of our loved ones, the businesses that we rely on, the health of the global economy, and certainly in the way that we live our daily lives. In order for society to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and its ripple effects out into our communities, we certainly have to do things differently. Like many of you, we're trying to do what we can to help our customers and the larger community navigate this challenging time. We know that every business's circumstances are different, and we want to know more about the challenges facing you. We are here to help. So how can I help? Well, I was invited to speak to you all today about websites, so let me start off by building some credibility in that area. I built my first website overnight while studying graphic design at the Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Word quickly spread, and the hobby soon became much more than just a side project. After less than a year in the workforce, I left my job teaching art to pursue Jason Hunter design full-time. That was back in 2003, and I haven't looked back since. Jason is my first name, Hunter is my middle name, Bass is actually my last name. When I created my business back in 2003, I thought that maybe putting two names together would make me sound bigger than I was and more professional. So that is where the name of the company came from. We now go by JHD, which you can see represented in the branding on my shirt. And my team now consists of a global network of developers, marketing professionals, and creatives. And together we service businesses and organizations across North America, Australia, and the UK. I actively participate in chambers of commerce throughout the Atlanta area, anywhere I'm able to use my talents, networks, and resources to mentor fellow entrepreneurs and small business owners through community initiatives such as Startup Fayette, 1 Million Cups, Mentorize, and a dinner series that I created called Select Entrepreneurs Eating Dinner, SEED. I also utilize my skill set as a web development professional to support the technology needs of many community-based charitable organizations, as you heard before. My entrepreneurial passions don't stop there, though. I am also the chair of Peachtree City's Night Market, which was formed in 2017 to bring a taste of Atlanta's nightlife to the nearby quaint suburbs I call home. I live in Sharpsburg, technically Coweta County, right on the border of Coweta, Fulton, Fayette. It's a great spot to be, but at 9 o'clock, everything shuts down and is completely dark, and people, at least not just limited to my age bracket, are very bored. So I created Night Market along with some friends to create something to change that. The monthly event brings local artists and artisans, vendors and food trucks, as well as thousands of participants to experience community, friends and neighbors up close and see their neighborhood in a different light. My latest passion project is Brewery Hours. It's an online directory of craft breweries set to launch later this month. That is a lot. And I hope that I have left you feeling like I know what I'm talking about. But now let's get into how a website can build credibility for your business. To put it simply, if you don't have a website, you look less credible because it seems like you either have something to hide or you just don't care enough to put in the effort. Well, in addition to displaying your products and services, a website is also an opportunity to talk about your brand, tell your story, your mission, your why. If you haven't already watched Simon Sinek's talk, I can share my screen. I should have started sharing my screen prior to this because I forgot I was sharing my website with you. This is my personal website. You can see all of the different organizations that I just mentioned. And this is the Simon Sinek talk that I'm referring to, entitled How Great Leaders Inspire Action. In this video, he talks about how the most successful companies start with why and work their way out to how they do what they do and then what they do. Now, this talk is not going to be all about that. I highly recommend that you watch this video on your own. But the point is that all of this is to build trust, which in my opinion is the third step in building long-lasting relationships. What are the first two steps? Well, I'll come back to that, but spoiler alert, it's know, like, trust. The importance of a website extends to every aspect of your digital marketing strategy, actually your marketing strategy, period. As the home base of your online presence, every type of communication, piece of content, or advertisement that you put out should drive the consumer back to your website. So let's take a look at what I call the ecosystem of a successful website. Okay, in this infographic, I've got various circles that reflect the different components that go into making a website successful. I think it's probably obvious to say that the most important piece is the website itself, but I'm actually going to start over here on the right side and talk about web hosting. Web hosting is like the land on which you would build a house. In order to direct traffic to that house, you need to have an address, right? If you're going to open up Google Maps or Apple Maps, you need to put in an address of what it is that you're looking for. That's your domain name. You need to purchase that domain name through a registrar, someone like GoDaddy. If you wanted to have professional email at that domain name, so essentially, my address here is 73 Silverbell. If I wanted Jason at 73 Silverbell, I would have to have professional email, and that's something else that you would purchase through the same provider as the domain name. The website is hosted on the server, and should also be protected by what's called a secure socket layer or an SSL certificate. And that is also something that is a necessity at this point in time. Google not only considers the security of a website important in how it ranks that website in its search results page, but it's also the #1 telltale sign for a consumer to know whether they are dealing with somebody who cares about their safety. And the last thing that I have circling the web hosting bubble is called website security, which is lack of a better word, a plugin that will scan your website to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities. And depending on the level of membership that you have with them, that you subscribe to, they will either go in and take care of it for you, or they'll just notify you and you have to tell your webmaster to go in and take care of it for you. But that area of the infographic is really the first, even though it's on the right side, it's really, we read from left to right, that's really the most important part, because without that, you can't even have a website. So let's talk about the website itself, the main website. Now I have in this bubble, it says custom website, and I want to just explain what that means. I also have in parentheses 40 hours. That's give or take the estimated number of hours that we would spend on a custom designed website. Now, custom is a really important word to emphasize here because there are so many of these do-it-yourself systems out there. Some that are so large, they advertise during the Super Bowl. You may know some of them. I'm not going to talk badly about any of them, but since I mentioned web hosting is like the land that you build your website on, the one thing that I do want to mention is that any of those DIY type websites, I'll say their names without talking bad about them, are Squarespace and Wix, and even GoDaddy has a website builder tool. All of those tools allow you to build your website on their land. I hope that makes sense. So essentially, if you're building your website in Squarespace, you're using a pre-made template. Even though you have the ability to go in and customize it, it can only exist on their server in their apartment building. So you have a unit in their apartment building. And if you want to move because your family is growing, you can't just pick up all of your stuff and move it out into this new house that you're building, because it technically doesn't belong to you. That worries me, right? But what worries me even more, because that's not a bad place for businesses to start. What worries me even more is that the designs that you're using are templated. They're built on templates. I emphasize the word custom because we like to build websites from the ground up. We like to sit with our clients and work with them on building their brand, which goes from the why all the way through to how your business is represented in form of logo, right? Everywhere, all the way through. So we take all of the color schemes that we've created, everything that we've determined to be important to your brand, and we build a custom design. That design is handed over to you in it's online, but it's a flat format. And you have the ability to click on the design right in your web browser from mobile, desktop, and tell us exactly what it is you like, don't like. For instance, I might click here and say, change this spelling to this. Or I might click there and I might say, I just don't really like this picture. Let's try to find something like this. And then we go back to the drawing board, which in our case is Photoshop, and we swap out whatever changes it was that you asked for, or we start from scratch. Because either way, we want to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're looking for, what you're going to be happy with, and what is going to represent your business the best. So with that design, once you've approved that design, the next step is to develop it, to build it out. So another part of our team then takes that design from Photoshop and slices it up and builds a template. I know the bad word template, but we essentially are building a template to then implement into a content management system. Okay, a content management system is essentially a system, a program that allows you, the layman, to manage the content on the website. Content management system, otherwise known as a CMS. The most popular CMS in the world is WordPress. I fought using WordPress for so many years because we wanted to do everything custom and feel like we were really, in control. And then I realized, I learned my lesson, just how much faster we could do things if we use something that already existed. What's that saying? Don't reinvent the wheel, right? So we embraced the wheel, and we now use WordPress for, I'd say, probably 90% of the websites that we build. But even though we're using a pre-made CMS, we again are custom building that theme that's going to be installed into WordPress, and it then allows you to use the tools, the WordPress tools, as a CMS to manage the content of the website. Much like Squarespace and Wix allow you to log in and manage the content of their websites, they are also considered content management systems. So we have our custom website. Let's assume you've approved the design. We have built it out. It is now fully functioning on the development server, which just means that it's hidden from the world. The world cannot access this unless you send them a direct link to look at it alongside of you and provide their feedback as well. Once the site is ready to, before the site is ready to go live, we want to really take a look at how the website, the content that's filling the website. And in my infographic, there's a bubble called keyword research, and there are 2 arrows pointing out from that bubble. Keyword research in itself is the content, the search engine optimization specialist part of my team will come into the picture, and they will do research based on a conversation that they've had with you to determine what type of a business you have and who your audience is, who your customers are, who your competitors are. And they'll come up with a list of keywords and keyword phrases that we can then do research on to see just how valuable those keyword phrases are. And let me explain what I mean by that. Let's say, okay, I have a client in Pennsylvania. They have some kind of technology that helps migrate data from one database to another type of a database. It is incredible what they do, but it is so highly specialized that when we plugged in the keywords that they gave us, there was zero search traffic for those keywords. So there would be no value in hiring us to do search engine optimization, another bubble I'll get to in a minute, because we can't optimize a website for search when no one is searching for those terms anyway. So keyword research, though, is very important on the onset of the project, because that keyword research is also going to feed the content that goes on the page. Now, I don't know about you guys, but as a business owner, I mean, I know I'm involved in a lot of things that a lot of people probably would not entertain, but I still don't have the time to write my own content. I'm not a good writer to begin with. I don't like doing research. So I hire a content writer, and we don't expect, but we encourage our clients to do the same, to hire one of our professional writers who will take that keyword research from the search engine specialist and write the content for your site. Now, on my infographic, I've got 20 hours in parentheses under content, and that's because we generally will estimate that a full website from start to finish, with typical 5 to 8 pages, is going to take about 20 hours of time to write that content, or to research and write that content. That number is kind of arbitrary because you might have a much smaller site that only needs 5 hours of time or 2 hours of time. It is put in the proposal as 20, but it is a negotiable or flexible number. So keyword research feeds content development then feeds custom website design. Keyword research also feeds SEO. So I suppose I should wait on the SEO part a second. Let's go to the top half of the infographic and continue talking about custom websites and all that can go in it. Right. So in the initial conversation that I would have with the customer, we would really want to figure out not only the why and who they are and what they do, why they do what they do, but also how they do what they do. So if selling products is something that you do, then we want to be able to figure out a way to help you sell products online more efficiently. If you're already selling products online, we want to look at how you're currently structured. Are the tools that you're using the right tools? A lot of people who start out selling e-commerce use PayPal as their payment method. Well, there's nothing wrong with PayPal, but their percentage rates, you're losing 3% of every transaction that's made through your website. The alternative is having a credit card processor that can give you the same services through a gateway, but at a much less rate. And I can't quote you on this, but my rate when I made that switch from PayPal over was somewhere like 2.3%. And now I've just switched to another company that I'd be more than happy to share with everybody on a referral basis. But I'm down at like 1.4%. Annually, that adds up to a lot of money. And that is a benefit of taking my e-commerce in-house, essentially using my own tools that we've built to sell through our website. Some of the other things that we need to discuss when we build an e-commerce website for people, aside from just how they're going to accept money, is how they're going to ship the products, how the products are going to be taxed. And do you have sales to wholesalers as well as consumers? So all of these things that we talk about, and there's a slew of other questions, but those are the really big points. Those are all the topics that we're going to need to cover to figure out just exactly how complicated and in-depth your e-commerce portion of your website is or needs to be. My most recent e-commerce, actually I've got two really cool ones to talk about. One is called Three Brothers Cookies. They're here in Fayetteville. They make stroopwafels, which is a Dutch cookie. There are no other companies in the United States that make these cookies. So basically, anytime that you get a cookie, a Dutch stroopwafel, it's coming from the Netherlands. By the time it's in your hand, well, look at me, I'm selling their business. It's not what we're on the call for. I just get excited because the cookies are really good. Anyway, they're very fresh. They're delicious. I highly suggest you check them out. Three Brothers Cookies, the number 3. They have not only wholesale sales to local boutiques and cafes and things like that, but they also want to sell to consumers nationally. So they have a number of different campaigns running, driving traffic to the various aspects of their site. If it's a wholesale ad, then it's going to drive traffic to the wholesale page versus the homepage for general consumers. And when the wholesalers create an account and they are then logging into the site through a secure area, the pricing that they see is different than the consumer pricing, because that's how wholesalers work. Taxes are also something that become very tricky when it comes to e-commerce, because now every state has different rules about how tax is supposed to be handled. There are plugins that we can use. I think one is called TaxJar, that will actually take the taxable portion of your order and set it aside for you, so that when it's time to pay your sales tax bill, all that money is right there. I don't know about you all, but for me, bookkeeping is not my strongest point. I do have a bookkeeper who helps me with all this stuff, and she loves the idea that this tool can help a client with that. So I hope that's useful for you to know. And shipping, Three Brothers Cookies, I think it's order over $70 is free shipping. I think right now they're doing free shipping anywhere because they're just trying to create more business. But shipping is another issue, right? We've got multiple shipping mechanisms. The typical USPS, UPS, FedEx. You can do freight shipping for large products. There's a lot to consider when it comes into shipping. So under the e-commerce bubble, I've got 10 hours in parentheses. Again, this is sort of an arbitrary flexible number because it can go extremely high or it can stay right about there, possibly go a little lower. It all depends on what you're doing. The other e-commerce story I was going to mention is for a farm here in, I guess they're technically in Noonan, if not Sharpsburg, right on the border there. They do a CSA, which is basically they're a farm and you can subscribe to a service where you can pick up a box of vegetables from them every other week, I believe. So they sell these CSA memberships through their website. We built that. That was an easy e-commerce build. But now, because of COVID-19, they're trying to make it easier and safer for people to come and pick up their boxes without having to go into the farm stand and choose what they want. So now we built this whole other area where the CSA members can log in and have access to products that nobody else publicly can see. And those products, just like any other inventory system, monitor how many are still available. And as people are putting their products in their box, it deducts the quantity available so that the next shopper who comes through can't over order something that isn't going to be replenished until the next crop comes up. It's pretty neat and very, very interesting in how they do that. Now, all those products are priced at $0 because they've already joined through their membership. So they're not paying anything additionally to shop. It's pretty neat. Anyway, I'm sharing all that because the e-commerce world can be incredibly diverse. And I wanted to share those scenarios with you so that you can think about different ways of possibly selling your products online. Okay, so let's go to the bottom half of the infographic, which covers SEO. SEO, very simply, stands for search engine optimization. Again, reverse engineering the words, we're optimizing your website for search engines. What does that even mean? A search engine like Google or Bing, they have what we used to call spiders. No one really uses that term anymore, but the spiders crawl the internet and scan websites for content to understand what those websites are about. There's a structure that needs to be in place in order for the search engines to efficiently and effectively scan a website's content. When we say that we are when anybody says that they're optimizing your website, really what they should be talking about is making sure your site has the proper schema in place so that websites like Google and Bing spiders can properly and efficiently scan your website. There is a service that we refer to as SEO. I call it ongoing SEO. And ironically, 50% of the effort, that is maybe even 80% of the effort that's put into SEO, ongoing SEO, is actually done off-site, meaning the SEO specialist might not even log into your website to do anything. He might be, or she might be, working off-site to build your website's credibility, to build your domain authority is what it's called. So all of that effort that they are taking is to drive people back to your website, just like all of your advertising and marketing that you're doing. The on-site stuff that they do is really more content related. And even though I had put content with 20 hours, there is also ongoing content development that we would offer as well, because again, I'm not a writer and I don't have time to write even if I was. But creating new relevant content on a frequent basis has been proven to be the most effective way to increase your search engine rankings. So SEO comes into play on every new post that you create, because it not only needs to take into consideration the keyword research, but the schema, the structure, and the way that it's built also needs to be considered before that piece is published. Okay, I have an arrow that is pointing from SEO to a bubble called digital media advertising. I also have an arrow from custom website pointing to social media, and social media points to social media marketing. So digital media advertising and social media marketing, those two pieces are going to be incredibly important in the overall success of your website. For those of you that were on the call with Brian Brown from 444 Group, he is an expert in that area. I hope that you go back and watch his talk from last week if you haven't already. He talks about all of these things in great detail. That's not what I'm going to talk about, but I will not leave this call until you understand the importance of how all of this works together. This is really why I call it an ecosystem. So social media plays into your social media marketing. It also feeds your digital media advertising. Your SEO also feeds digital media advertising, because when we talk about SEO, we're typically talking about search engines. And when people are searching and you want to come up higher in the search results list, that falls under the umbrella of digital media advertising. Whereas on social media, if you're taking out ads or boosting posts or anything along those lines, it's still considered digital media, but it's really within the Google, the social media sphere, right? Your various social media networks. I'm just realizing that Google Plus is an icon in my circle, and that is they've been out of business for quite a while. I should replace it with LinkedIn, because they offer advertising now that's very, very good. Anyway, okay, so we went over just about everything that I think is necessary for the success of your website. But there's one more piece, and it's one of the larger bubbles on my infographic, and that is maintenance. Maintenance, if you can see, has two halves. There's the 2 hour a month half and the 5 hours a month half of my circle. The difference between the two, okay, let's be obvious here, is 3 hours. The first 2 hours is designated for us to maintain your website's security. That has nothing to do with the content of the website itself. What we're going to do for those 2 hours spread across the month is take daily backups and update any core WordPress updates that are available. We're going to make any theme or plugin updates that are available. And what I want to make really clear about this and why it's important and how it works is that WordPress is what's called an open source software. In other words, if you go to WordPress, I forgot I'm sharing my screen so I can do it right now. If you go to wordpress.org and click Get WordPress, you can download not only the latest version of WordPress, but under more resources, you can go and you can download previous, no, that's not where you do it, all releases, sorry, under more resources, all releases. These are all of the releases that WordPress has made. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the latest release, which just came out last week, 5.4, was to create what they call a branch of the latest version before that, 5.3. They advertise what was changed and why they changed it. In other words, if there was a vulnerability that needed to be taken care of, they do that and they release it and make it available to you as soon as they possibly can. The problem is that not everybody updates their site right away. So that vulnerability stays on their site for an undetermined amount of time. In that amount of time, hackers, that's a very broad label to put on people, and unfortunately I can't really explain why people do what they do, but these hackers will look to exploit those vulnerabilities, making your site susceptible. Thing is, let's continue. Okay, so plugins are what we use to enhance the functionality of WordPress. Every WordPress site uses probably 10 to 20 different plugins, anything from a form builder to the e-commerce engine, to a slider that makes images rotate. All of these things are done by using plugins. Plugins are created by developers who also are responsible for keeping up the updates on their plugins to make them less vulnerable. The plugin developers and the WordPress developers don't necessarily talk to each other. So you've got WordPress updates that are made, but plugins that are not quite compatible with that latest update. So when you do your updates, you've got to be very careful to know which one is compatible with what or what isn't, and be aware that if you do an update, you could potentially break the website. Three Brothers Cookies, the client went in and made 3 plugin updates on his own, and for some reason, the add to cart button stopped working. Not only that, but so he called me and told me, so I went to go log into the admin panel and I was getting a blank white page. Now I know that that's a plugin problem because that's just what WordPress does. It's the white page of death, they call it. So I knew what to do to go in and fix it, but we're not on a maintenance plan with them. So he had to make those updates himself, and he essentially put himself out of business for, I think it was probably 24 hours, which is a really big deal when you're spending a lot of money running ads on Google ads and Facebook ads and everything else. I'm sure you can imagine the scenario was quite stressful for him. So we had to go back in and we had to downgrade the 3 plugins that he upgraded because they weren't compatible with the latest version of WordPress, which his server apparently automatically updated. Needless to say, he signed up for maintenance yesterday once we went in and fixed it. So the difference between that 2-hour and 5-hour plan is that we're essentially building in 3 additional hours so that we can be your webmaster. We're not just taking care of your website like your mechanic would put oil in the car. We also want to be your driver, if you will. I want you to be able to reach out to me and know that you can rely on us to post the blog that you had written, or to make a price modification on a product that you're selling, or to create a coupon code if you're trying to generate some interest. Anything that goes over the allotted time frame in either one of those maintenance packages will just be billed hourly, and you pay at the hourly rate according to the maintenance plan. So the higher amount of hours you prepay for each month lowers the hourly rate, and we honor that rate for any additional work that we do. So that, in a nutshell, as the saying goes, is how we do what we do. The last piece, which is really not even on my infographic here, is analytics. And I'm not going to go into a great bunch of detail there, but analytics, essentially, there are many tools out there. Google Analytics is the most popular one, and it's the one that we use the most, amongst other tools. But Google Analytics is for those of you that aren't aware, is a little snippet of code that you embed on your website and tracks the behavior of people who are on your website. So that can tell us the various demographics of those people because they're most likely logged into their Google account, or they have a cookie on their website that's tracking all their behavior. We don't get to know who they are necessarily, but we do know enough about them. We can then take that information and use it for so many different levels, right? If you're going to create a piece of advertisement, you're going to want to make sure that we are speaking to the right audience. And that's the best way of getting to know who they are, who your clients are. I want to tell you about two more things, is Google also has a product called Google Tag Manager. It's, in my professional opinion, that when you create your website and you create your Google Analytics account, that you should implement the Google Analytics code via Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager has a ton of features built into it that allow you to do various things that Google Analytics by itself can't do. And if you have additional tracking codes, like if you're, I'm trying to draw a blank, but Facebook Pixel, you can embed that Facebook Pixel through the Tag Manager and not have to go into the code of your website yourself, or even have your webmaster do it. That means that your webmaster, let's say you hire me to design the website, you can actually hire somebody else to do all of the marketing, and that then becomes less exposure to your website. They don't have to be quite as involved in the building of the website, the content of the website, and they can just handle that portion. Or you can have somebody doing your SEO, monitoring the web analytics without having to get into the back end of the website. I like that as a web developer, because that means that my clients take less risk. The more cooks in the kitchen, right? We want to keep people out and keep it clean, so that we don't run the risk of things breaking because somebody added something they weren't supposed to or didn't know any better. So Google Tag Manager, look into it, migrate your Google Analytics into that as a way of getting it onto your page. Same thing with Facebook Pixel. So I think that covers everything that I could possibly talk about in how a website is built and why you want to do things a certain way. I could probably do an entire separate webinar on branding and design and taking into consideration all the various aspects that you want to consider when you are designing the website. But that's for another day. So Carmenita, is there anything that I missed or that you'd like to have me touch on?
Well, Jason, thanks for sharing your expertise with our audience. I don't see any, oh, now I see some questions. Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
I have a couple of questions in the chat box, and I think that we're actually a small enough group that we can let the individual ask their question.
sure.
So our first caller, Charmaine, she has a question.
Hi, Charmaine. I see your website, angelsarenetworking.com. I'm taking a look at it now. And you're on mute, Charmaine.
See, I'm a good Zoom person. I put myself on. Okay. I have been using GoDaddy website builder myself completely since I launched my small business network for a year and into this first few months of 2020. And as I load content, videos, photos, whatever it is, linking it up to Instagram and everything, as I use it more as a load of content, and when I'm working in the website builder, I now get a message, an error message across the top of the screen that says this page is using an excessive amount of resources. It slows down my entire computer, and it says you may want to close up what I'm doing, which is I'm trying to work to increase productivity, some kind of message like that. And it only occurs when I'm in website builder and I'm doing adding more pages or content to my website. My first question is it something that I am doing in trying to manage my content, or is this specific to GoDaddy website builder problem? And the follow-up question to that is, if it's a GoDaddy, not me, what is it that I would need to know to ask when I move into a new platform to make sure that a year or two later, so let's say I move to WordPress, that a year or two later, if I'm having 7 or 8 pages on the website, or having more videos because I have it linked to my YouTube and so forth, what is the question? What is that resource resource overload question that I need to know technically how to ask to get to a new website?
Sure. So I can't claim to be an expert on GoDaddy's website builder tool. However, in full disclosure, I'm a reseller of GoDaddy products. So I have a branded page called Jason Hunter Hosting where I've hand selected which of GoDaddy's products I want to resell. And I've selected products that I think are the best products that they sell. You can get them directly at GoDaddy.com. You cannot migrate from GoDaddy's website builder to one of their other tools. You would essentially be starting from scratch. But amongst GoDaddy's packages, their products, I don't know if the website builder has various levels, but every server package that any server company is going to offer is going to have certain limitations. There's going to be, how many CPUs are you have access to, how much memory is there, all of these things. In my opinion, if I had a server company, I feel like you just open the doors and let people have what they have and not limit them, because I feel like it's all arbitrary anyway. I mean, these server farms that you see on, in stock photos and on TV, that's where your website is being hosted. They're not really designating, this much space for you and only you. You and thousands of other people are sharing those resources. So they keep an eye on how much everybody is uploading and how much traffic everybody is doing, because if tons of traffic is driving to your one website is driving tons of traffic, you're going to affect all of the others, right? And let's hope that's the issue and that somebody else's traffic isn't slowing yours down. But if you're uploading raw video, I mean, videos are typically a gigabyte in size, right? Now, you did mention YouTube, and that is my professional advice to everybody, because YouTube is a social media network. It has its own value to have a professional page set up there where all of your content lives. But the beauty of it is that you can embed your video on your website and not take up the resources of your own server, but instead utilize YouTube, Google's server resources, which are like unlimited, right? So videos are going to load faster on your website when other people are viewing it, simply because you're utilizing YouTube servers. So I'm a little bit concerned about the message you're getting, because if you're using YouTube and you're not uploading raw video or even condensed video like a .mov file, you really shouldn't have that issue. But if you're having the issue, which it sounds like you are, it's probably because of the limitations that your level of website builder is offering you. So my suggestion looking forward, or in the time right now, you could probably look and see if there's any way to upgrade and increase that number so that that message can stop displaying, because that's annoying. But if you're looking at other products, there are a lot of companies out there, GoDaddy included, that offer managed WordPress hosting. It's not a bad product. It's just very limiting. I don't want to say it's false advertisement. That's not really fair to them. But what I'll say is what they manage is the server itself. That's nice. You don't have to worry about managing the server. What's not nice about that is that you can't access the server in order to make certain setting changes to give you more flexibility, more power on that server, because they're managing it for you. The other thing that they claim to be a benefit is that they're updating WordPress for you. Well, if you remember what I said about how plugins are not always kept up to date to be compatible with the latest version of WordPress, that means that GoDaddy doing that update could essentially break your website, because the plugins, they're not going to touch plugins. They're only going to touch the core WordPress, as if anybody's website could actually run on WordPress with no plugins. So it's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of a joke that I don't even like to sell that product. So I look at what's called cPanel hosting. cPanel hosting is essentially, it's a shared hosting environment, which just means what I said before. You probably have thousands of other websites that are on your same server, but there's unlimited traffic, there's unlimited memory, it gives you everything that you could possibly need. And because it's cPanel, you have access to components of the server settings that you wouldn't have in the managed WordPress. So you could increase the upload file size. For instance, I have a client out in California who does cheerleading camps, and his application packet was like 72 megabytes. That's a very large file for anybody to have to download, but he wanted it uploaded to his website. Because there was a limitation with WordPress that we couldn't upload a file of that size, I was able to go into the cPanel, change the settings to increase it to 128 megabytes, and that file uploaded no problem. I would typically go and downgrade that number again because there's really no reason to upload a file that big. But anyway, the point is that with cPanel hosting, you have access that you wouldn't normally get.
So would I be able to use, so would you then recommend that I can't migrate from GoDaddy, but go to WordPress and then use cPanel hosting?
Yeah, so that's, I didn't think about this in my my analogy of building a house, right? The house is the land, but WordPress is a system, a software, a structure that helps us build the house. I don't know about you. I like browsing Pinterest, right? And on Pinterest, for whatever reason, because I've expressed my like in the past about houses, right? I guess when we were looking to buy this house or something. So now I get all these blueprints. Like this blueprint is available for $1,500. So you take the blueprint and you go to the architect and you say, let's start here and let's add on so that it becomes ours. But this is where I want to start, right? WordPress is that blueprint. WordPress is the structure. It's a house that is ready for you to move into, but is completely open for you to decorate and enhance however you want. If you want a Jack and Jill bathroom, if you want a jacuzzi tub, like you can do whatever you want because it's open for you to do that in. So WordPress is, like I said, it accounts for about 90% of the work that we do. The other 10% is custom development, app development, but WordPress is a majority of how websites are built in the world. So I highly suggest you look into WordPress. And if you're going to run WordPress, like any other website, I would suggest that it's run on a server with cPanel so that you have the control that you need. So that was a long-winded answer of yes, cPanel, highly recommend WordPress. Upload your videos to YouTube and embed them. Still do all the things that you were doing.
I probably should have mentioned that I'm doing all this on an iMac. So if you have not heard of that particular error, maybe I also need to see what's going on the Mac.
Yeah, next time you get the error, take a screenshot of it and send it to me so I can see what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Because if it's a local resource, if it's your computer, it has nothing to do with GoDaddy at all, then you don't, this conversation is mute, right? It doesn't matter. But
okay. I'm assuming you want to give us an email for you?
Sure. Actually,
Carmen Lita will give it to us, I guess. But Jason, the third and final thing that I wanted to ask you is that I have a member of a small business member who's an international mogul, and she has been trying to find, she has actually engage some other web designer, not just as web designers, but the whole ecosystem to provide an e-commerce international functional complex site for her. And a few times it has not worked out. She has been disappointed. So she keeps wanting to find someone that has a lot of experience in building international e-commerce. But what I would like to find out from you, because there, you could Google and there are quite a few people who say, yes, I can deliver. But because she's been burnt before, I would like to find out if in your particular company, if you do any type of limited amount of guarantee or anything in the site that it will actually provide the functionality and the specifications that were agreed to between you and the customer after delivery?
That's a really great question. I want to answer this question the right way. So I feel like the obvious thing for me to say is, of course, right? Like I'm having trouble answering it because it seems so obvious. Like if you were to go in and order a turkey and cheese sandwich and you left with roast beef, then they didn't give you the right thing. Like that's not good business. So yes, we would always deliver what we said we were going to deliver. But if you didn't, I mentioned turkey and cheese. I didn't say turkey and Swiss. So if I gave you turkey and provolone, I still did my job because you didn't specify the kind of cheese. Now, whose fault is that? Is it my fault for not asking you what type of cheese, or is it yours for not telling me what type of cheese? I run into that a lot because sometimes you just forget to ask the right questions. So I'm not defending the person who didn't do what they said they were going to do because I don't know the circumstance, but it's possible that they just weren't told exactly what was needed, and what they delivered was their version of what they thought was being asked of them. So do I offer a guarantee though?
Or a limited one, or something just based on the upfront agreement.
Sure.
Like if you've got the good requirements and if you deliver what's in the requirement, then sure. But if you can go back to the, I'm just saying, we can maybe take this offline, commonly. If
No, I got a private message from somebody else listening who said that was a good analogy. So honestly, I think that this conversation is,
okay.
People are hearing it, it's good, it's helping.
Glad I can.
So I just wanted to say though, in my proposals, my process is that you're the client. You and I, we spend as much time as needed to consult, right? We have this conversation to talk about all of your needs. I then relay those messages, everything, all my notes to my copywriter because she's better at writing than I am. She interprets what we talked about and puts it in the intro of a proposal. The rest of the proposal is pretty boilerplate, but what she writes is a really good summary of what we discussed. When you get that proposal, if I'm way off base, if I miss something, don't sign the proposal. Like, talk to me about it so we can revise it and get it to be exactly right. Now, it may not be, I'm sorry, there's a term that is just completely escaping me right now. In a more formal proposal, we might write out the details of everything we're going to deliver. I don't know why I can't think of what
high level. It may not be. So your content writer may capture it in a high level or a user friendly terminology manner, but you have the details later down the road. Or
well, but here's where that gets fuzzy, right? So I mentioned WooCommerce. Oh, I didn't actually mention WooCommerce. I mentioned e-commerce using WordPress. The tool that we like to use is WooCommerce. I can talk up and down about what WooCommerce's base features are. But now we talk about shipping, and that's not included, or I should say using USPS, UPS, FedEx, all of those are not included in WooCommerce by default. So we need to then introduce another plugin to enhance the functionality of WooCommerce. I don't take the time to tell you exactly what plugin we're going to use when we're pitching this whole project to you, because it might change. The plugin that I think I want to use now may not be as updated as I want it to be when it's time to implement for you. So I don't want to use that plugin anymore. Now, I don't want to be locked into using a plugin because I told you in the scope of work. That's the word I couldn't think of. Sometimes clients want a very detailed scope of work, and there has to be room for some flexibility because things don't always go exactly as you imagined that it would as you're starting to build it out. The Country Gardens Farm, I absolutely loved working on their project with them. Building the CSA subscription was something we've absolutely decided we were going to do, which meant we needed a shopping cart. They also wanted to offer classes that people could sign up to participate in. Well, signing up requires payment. So we needed an event plugin and a product cart that all integrated into one shopping cart. So you could essentially check out with your CSA and a class all in one transaction. That seems really seamless, like no big deal. But an event plugin doesn't always come with WooCommerce integration. So I was very careful in my proposal to not scope out using one particular tool because I didn't know exactly which tool we were going to use until I got into it a little more. So having a scope of work is important, but there is room for error if it's not explicitly defined as to what you're going to do.
Okay, thanks, Jason. We can take this offline. I don't want to. I don't want to.
Sure. I'm not seeing any other questions though. So if anybody would like to ask anything, now's the time to jump in. If not, then I will certainly hear. Let me, for those of you that are watching, I lost my share screen, but I've got here you go. Can you see that okay? Is that helpful?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so down, I don't know why it's so small, I'm sorry, but I have a bit.ly link, which will help me track, that you guys are reaching out to me through because of this call. If you just jot that down and plug that into your URL bar, your browser, that'll bring you to my website, and we can book a consultation from there. Somehow I lost the other window with all of you guys, though. I don't see you now. I just see my screen. So, all right. Well, I'm going to turn screen sharing off and turn it back over for any concluding notes.
Jason, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us this morning. We really appreciate it. It was very informational. And let's just give Jason a round of applause.
Thanks. I imagine all of you on mute are clapping. It makes me feel great. Thank you.
Friday Facts is on April the 10th. As you know, the Chamber has Wednesday Wisdom, where we let small businesses give us some wisdom for the day and their expertise. And then Friday Facts, we address things that are factual that you need to know in regarding to today's economic environment. So this Friday, April the 10th, we'll address the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Wednesday is Wisdom on April the 15th. Paul Myers will be our keynote speaker from Right Path Technology. And he's going to provide wisdom on cybersecurity and what you need to do to keep your product safe at this time. So thanks for attending today's session. The ATL Airport Chamber looks forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Follow COVID-19 safety recommendations and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.